The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
EU Foreign Affairs and Security Policy lead spokesperson Peter Stano on Wednesday said the European Union regrets the increasing number of reported acts of intimidation, threats and physical assaults on civil society representatives, political leaders, civil activists and journalists in Georgia. According to Stano, the EU once again calls on the Georgian authorities to put an end to these negative developments and investigate the documented acts of violence and intimidation thoroughly and in a timely manner. The EU also called upon Georgian political actors to refrain from using language which could further fuel the extreme polarization in the country. The Georgian economy has been projected to grow 5.2% in 2024 in the June edition of the World Bank's Global Economic Prospects report published on Wednesday. The report says the growth is projected to ease this year in the country as a result of tight monetary policy, declining money transfer inflows and a slowdown among trading partners. There are significant risks to the outlook, including those stemming from geopolitical uncertainties, it says. However, the growth forecast is still higher in June's edition compared to the January one, when a 4.8% growth was projected. A memorandum of cooperation was signed between JSC Rustavi Azot and the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. In January 2023, 100% of the shares of JSC Rustavi Azot were acquired by Indorama Corporation, a Singapore-based multinational industrial group. Indorama has taken a decision to invest $60 million in the construction of a new manufacturing facility for production of low-density ammonium nitrate, LDN, in the territory of JSC Rustavi Azot. The LDN project involves the production of a new high-value product that will enhance export earnings and increase foreign exchange reserves for the country, optimize and sustain the current direct and indirect employment in addition to creating additional opportunities. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Guangilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. Georgian winemaking is deeply intertwined with the country's cultural identity and economy. Last year, the Georgian wine export amounted to 259 million USD, meaning it doubled over 10 years. In 2023, 65% of all Georgian wine ended up in Russia, which remains the biggest export market for Georgian wine. Yet Georgian wine is becoming popular in the European Union too. Last year, Georgian winemakers exported 30 million USD worth of beverages to the EU, almost 3 times more than a decade ago. In recent years, Georgian wine has gained international acclaim. BMG's Business Evening host Georgi Aronia talked about Georgian wine with Fernando Cortinas, who is a professor at IE Business School, where he is teaching a case study about Georgian wine.
Fernando, hi. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to talk to you about wine, especially because you are teaching a case study about Georgian wine at IE University in Spain.
Thank you, Georgie, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to meet you here.
Fernando, the first question I'd like to ask you is about wine exports, because wine for Georgians and for Georgia has a very important cultural heritage, historical significance. But apart from that, it's also very important for us economically. Last year, we exported around 259 million USD worth of wine, which is roughly 4.25% of the total export of the country. So wine is pretty significant, and it's growing basically every year. In the last decade, wine export over almost doubled in share. Based on that, I'd like to ask you about Russia, because now over 65% of Georgian wine in 2023 was exported to Russia, which has its own specificities when it comes to wine. I'd like to ask you, how big of a threat, if you think it's a threat for export, for 65%, the majority of export, be focused on one country such as Russia?
Thank you for asking that question, because this is precisely one of the challenges that we tackle in the case was of Georgia. 4 or 5 years ago, when we wrote the case, almost more than 80% of the wine exports were going to Russia. And one of the conclusions was we have to diversify away in order to decrease the exposure and vulnerabilities to the Russian market. You are a small fish, they are a big fish. They can cut you out, and they will not suffer because they will be in a position to replace the wine imports from other countries, but you will suffer a lot because you are highly concentrated on that. So one of the conclusions and one of the recommendations is the Georgian wine industry needs to diversify away from the traditional markets, because not only Russia concentrates a high proportion, but due to historical reasons, I would say that more than 95% of wine exports were concentrated in countries related to the former Soviet sphere, so to speak, like Ukraine, and this is a risk, and this is why you need to look for newer markets and for newer types of wines, and you need to sell them at higher prices.
One of the ways of diversifying Georgian exports is to export to the EU. We also export to the US. China and Japan are also becoming very interesting, but money-wise, numbers-wise, those three markets are not that big. In terms of EU, we exported around 30 million USD worth of wine last year, which is almost triple of the exports 10 years ago. So we do see a drastic trend, drastic increase, but still the numbers are nowhere close to the numbers that we see in terms of exports to Russia. In your opinion, what should Georgian winemakers do to appeal more to European market?
Well, you have to do, in my view, this is something we're going to discuss with wine growers, there are like 3 or 4 viable alternatives. And this is a, let's say, you can escalate this over a period of several years. In the short run, there is no other chance than keeping exporting to Russia with the value for money proposition, because it's still your cash cow and you are generating steady cash flows from Russia. What should the industry do? Of course, invest in improving the production facilities, invest in developing new distribution channels, and investing in developing new type of products. And this is where the different options appear on the table. One alternative could be to export the same type of wines, Western taste type of wines, to the European Union countries and even to the United Kingdom, which is the largest net importer on earth, with the same value proposition. Even the United States. Let's say, I'm not going to be able to sell a bottle of Georgian wine at 100 euros because you don't have the brand image that is going to allow you to do so. If you are a French wine producer, you could do that. So one alternative is go in the short run to Europe and the United States and even to China with the value proposition of we are the cradle of wine, we have unique grape varieties, our wines are different, but still we sell a very good wine at a decent price level. The alternative number one. Alternative number two, tackle traditional markets, let's imagine Russia, and tell the younger consumers, wait a minute, Georgia has changed. During the Soviet times, Georgia was focused on quantity, not quality. We had 150,000 hectares under vineyards. Today we have 50,000 hectares. And because of that, the Georgian wine that you sell or that you buy today has nothing to do with the Georgian wine that your grandparents used to drink. So this is the idea of increasing the price per liter, but the advantage of doing that is that you have already the channels in place. The disadvantage is that you have to educate the consumers that the Georgian wine has changed, and this still doesn't reduce the exposure to the vulnerabilities you could get from being exposed to the Russian market. And the third alternative, which is only viable in the long run, is to bet on very high quality, very high price, becoming a niche type of producer, but this will require generous, sustained investments in marketing over years to position Georgian wines as radically different. And you could produce two types of wines. Western type of wines, let's say like the typical traditional French, Italian, Spanish wine, but positioning yourself at the very high price level, following the strategies of countries like New Zealand and to a lesser extent Argentina and Chile in the niche markets. Or you should bet for something that makes you unique, which is the query wines. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing that correctly, the so-called amber wines. Yeah? And these, I feel that they are the four alternatives you have. One in the short run, do business as usual, and then continue to explore traditional markets with new value propositions and open markets in Europe and the US and perhaps China with these other two alternatives.
Do you think that these alternatives that you mentioned have to be implemented all at once, or the country and winemakers should focus on any particular of them?
I believe in a gradual approach, in a multi-stage gradual approach. And again, there is nothing such as only one strategy for Georgia, because in the end, it's not going to be Georgia, but Georgian wineries and wine producers who are going to choose to play in one way or the other. Yeah? For sure, what I would like to see more, and this is beyond politics, I am not familiar, I am not interested in jumping into Georgian politics, but this should be an affaire d'etat, a matter of state. Beyond who is running the government, there should be a policy, a long-run strategy through which the government would support the Georgian wine industry as a whole to go through these different stages of export. Large wineries, you have some large wineries, already can play the game of exporting your current wines. In Europe, value for money, you have to invest in finding distributors, that's it. But small wineries who have niche products, small productions, they can begin to play the game of, let's say, query wines at 150 euros a bottle, tackling or attacking only the experts, the knowers, the connoisseurs. But this would imply a long-term strategy of marketing, education, marketing investments. And in my view, I don't know whether there are so many wineries that can play that game. And in that case, the government should implement a policy with clear export-related objectives in order to make this happen.
What are some of the trends that you see on the European market that could be used by the Georgian winemakers to somehow appeal more to the customers there?
This is an excellent, complex question. Thank you for asking that. One of the trends is that wine consumption and wine production is slowly but steadily decreasing year after year. And therefore, the only way to survive in Europe is to differentiate your value proposition. On global basis, there are 100 million hectoliters being sold, yeah? And this generates something like 36 billion euros. This is the big C. When you think that Georgian wines are just 1 million hectoliters, you have less than 1% of the global export market. And if you think, as you mentioned, that you are selling $260 million, every bottle is sold around 2.5, 2.4 euros per liter, when the average is 3.6. So, given that Georgia is a small player, becoming a niche supplier or a niche exporter, it is very intelligent. And what would be your unique sales proposition? You should adopt as the baseline Georgia, the cradle of winemaking. And this is why the title of our case, and I will send you a copy, it is Wines of Georgia, Marketing the Cradle of Wine. Not many people know about that. And buyers would be interested in tasting your wines if they are special enough. Given that you have more than 525 accepted grape varieties, most of them endemic to Georgia, you have room to sell differentiated wines, not only in quality, but also in terms of tastes. And I feel that this is the name of the game that Georgian wine producers should play. Because the market, to finish the answer to your question, only one word is premiumization. What does it mean? 20 years ago, the average price per liter paid in international wines would be around 2 euros. Today it's close to 4. And even though global consumption is falling, the proportion of wines coming from international origins is going up. Consumers are willing to pay more expensive amounts of money to taste different things. And from that viewpoint, Georgia has an opportunity. Another trend that fits very well with the query type of wine, it is organic, natural wines. There is nothing more natural, nothing more organic than a query wine. And because of that, you have an opportunity to exploit there. But again, this will take time, patience, drive, and money.
In terms of Georgian wines, what people usually mention is red wines. You know, Saperavi, Kinzmarauli, Usakhelauri also, which is a very unique wine from Raja region. But you know, we also produce a lot of white wines, and actually the white wine production is way higher than the red wine production in Georgia. What could be done to target white wine market as well? You know, white Qvevri wines and also amber wines, maybe. Why not? What could be done so that you know, we sell red wines? Okay, but we also sell way more white wines.
I mean, I wouldn't be so worried about what type of wine. Remember that you can produce red wines or white wines depending on how you process the skin of the grape. It is not that you can produce only white wines. But I feel that the real opportunity for Georgia again is to exploit this idea of 525 different grape varieties. Even you can produce very special wines from very special plots, and still there would be a niche to be untapped. Having said that, the amber wine is unique to Georgia. And given that you have this at the UNESCO heritage or part of cultural heritage, this is another label that you could put to the wines that you are going to export. We still feel that the problem you have is that this production of amber wines, of query wines, is limited by the number of queries. You should, and the people who know how to produce the queries are dying. So the first thing you should do, and I feel that there are efforts going into that direction, you should create like a school for craftsmanship or for craftsmen to teach how young kids, young generations, how to produce the queries in order to sell query wines. You know what? Because no one is going to be able to compete with you on that particular niche. You are protected by this UNESCO thing, cultural thing, and if it is true that premiumization and internationalization are the two key words for the name of the game, you cannot produce 100 billion bottles. Your productions will be still limited to small amounts of bottles, and this is what you should play. A small number of bottles from very particular, peculiar regions, exporting and selling them at very high price. You need to build a story around the query wines. Don't forget that 3/4 of your production comes from Cajete. But then you have the going to talk about the quality wines, you have the Cajete, but you also have the Meretti. And you have these rivalries. People don't know where Georgia is. Sorry. You need to build a brand Georgia around the wine. And the idea that you are the cradle of wine gives you a unique, differentiated point to position Georgian wines abroad.
Fernando, let me ask you a last question. We touched upon the case study several times.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you about how did the idea came about, and why did you decide to teach the history and the economics of Georgian wine at IE University?
Okay, at the IE, because you know the school from inside, we have people from more than 140 nationalities on campus. Not every year, but we have students from different origins. I am a passionate about wine. And at the IE, we teach cases of well-established brands, because there are many cases written. And I always, when I discuss different cases, when we discuss wine-related cases, I ask the same question to the students. Do you know where is the land of the origin of wine? And no one answers. Yeah? And it happened that I made this question in a group where I had Georgian students. And they got mad at this, positively. They said, something is the first time that the person knows that Georgia is the country of origin of wine. And then they came to me and said, why don't you write a case? I said, listen, I don't have time to write cases. But then they convinced me, 5 students, and this should be grateful because private initiative is also important. During the COVID, they phoned me and said, Professor, you are locked, right? And they began to laugh because they knew that I was locked. Yeah, now what are you going to do? Can you write the case on Georgian wines? And we made some arrangements, and it took me more than 2 months, because writing a case, it's a big job. You know what a case is. It's like a little novel between 10 and 20 pages. So collecting the information, filtering the data, write something that makes sense, it's a lot of a job. So it took me 2 full months to write the case. And then we presented the case right after the COVID crisis ended up, during the 30th anniversary of the independence of Georgia, and that it was in May 2021 at the IE. And we had the presence of the General Secretary of the WTO, the World Touristic Organization, who sits in Madrid and who's a Georgian. And then we got the visit of the Minister of Agriculture. We had the presence of several ambassadors during the visit of your President or Prime Minister to Spain. So it was a public event, and everyone was happy. And at least right now, per year, at least 400 students in 3 countries in 2 different continents, because I teach this case at the Catholic University of Chile, in Chile and in Guatemala. I teach this case twice a year in 2 business schools in Portugal, which is a well-known wine producer country. And of course, I teach this at the IE in Spain. So I feel that from a marketing viewpoint, you should invest more as a country, not only in writing cases, but educating consumers that Georgia is the cradle of wine.
Fernando, thank you very much for the interview and the job you're doing to raise the awareness and basically creating the brand for Georgian wine in Spain and all the other countries you mentioned.
Thank you very much.
What was new in business this week? Natia Taktakishvili will tell us more. Silknet and global telecommunication leader Orange are proud to announce the formation of a new strategic partnership under the Orange Alliance program. The agreement is effective from June 2024. This collaboration is set to enhance Silknet's capabilities in digital services in Georgia. Looking ahead, Silknet and Orange are committed to expanding this partnership by exploring new avenues for cooperation and further integrating their operations to better serve customers and tackle the evolving challenges of the digital landscape. I'm proud that a decade of close and successful cooperation between our companies, Silknet and European telecom giant Orange, is now transitioning into a strategic alliance which marks a new era in the rapid development of Silknet's digital ecosystem. This strategic partnership ensures Silknet's ability to offer these customers new cutting-edge technologies, products and services, stated Giorgi Ramishvili, chairman of Silknet's supervisory board. Silknet is Georgia's leading fixed and mobile network provider, offering individuals, households and businesses the full range of telecommunications services such as mobile services, fixed broadband, pay TV and fixed telephony. A memorandum of cooperation was signed between Rustavi Azot and the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Indiramas has taken a decision to invest $60 million in the construction of a new manufacturing facility for production of low-density ammonium nitrate in the factory of Rustavi Azot. The project involves the production of a new high-value products that will enhance exports earnings and increase foreign exchange reserves for the country, optimize and sustain the current direct and indirect employment in addition to creating additional opportunities. This project will attract additional capital and bring sustainable social and economic benefits. 1% shareholder of Rustavi Azot was acquired by Indorama Corporation, a Singapore-based multinational industrial group, in January 2023. Telliani Valley is increasing its activities in the USA. According to the company, the USA is a strategically important export market for Telliani Valley, and the assortment offered is specially curated for local wine consumers. The exceptional wines are crafted using both classic and traditional Georgian methods, including fermentation in quarry. To strengthen its presence in the competitive market, Telliani Valley announced additional investments in 2023 and signed an agreement with Palmeter Consulting LLC, which specializes in assisting wine producers in achieving their distribution goals in the U.S. market. This new agreement enhances the efficiency of Telliani Valley's wine supply in the USA. A new warehouse in California has been established, providing flexibility in distribution and market coverage. Telliani Valley has partnered with Georgian Wine House, a national importing company based in Greater Washington, since 2005. The U.S. brings the world's largest wine market, presents both great opportunities and intense cooperation with wines from all over the globe. The winery is also introducing renovated packaging for U.S. market under the label Telliani Vineyards. Both Georgian and American creative agencies collaborated on these visual changes, taking into account insights from local wine experts. Telliani Vineyards offering in the U.S. includes Amber Blend, Saperavi, Tsolikauri, Kinsmarauli and Saperavi Selection. Telliani Valley aims to double its sales in 2024 and continues to promote Georgian wine around the world. Tolia is expanding its ice cream chain. Sandra Lomtadze, marketing manager of Tolia, told BMDG that 2 new facilities will be opened in Tbilisi soon. We have news, and soon 2 additional facilities will be opened in Tbilisi, and a new product donuts has been added to the ice cream chain. There is a demand, so we try to develop this direction, said the marketing manager of Tolia. According to him, the company has kept the existing prices, so the demand for industrial ice cream is growing. The prices that we had last year are not changed, and there is a 10% increase in demand for industrial ice cream compared to last year, says Sandra Lomtadze. Tolia company has been operating in the market since 1996 and produces about 60 types of ice cream. Tolia ice cream chain is present in the country with 28 facilities in Tbilisi, Rustavi, Kutaisi and Batumi. Tekla Cinjarauli, co-founder of Hotel Sulfoni, located in Shatili, declares that bookings have already started, but they expect special activity from the second half of June. Cinjarauli explains that the hotel occupancy in the mountainous regions depends on the weather, which often changes. After the winter, the road to Khasureti is already registered. So we are slowly starting to prepare for the season and waiting for guests. It's very difficult to make forecasts in advance. We depend on the weather. However, we expect that this year will be a better season compared to the last one, says Cincharaoglu. When evaluating the summer season 2023, co-founder of Sulfoni notes that there was a lack of foreign tourists in Khasureti, and this year they are expected to be active again. Last year, the lack of foreign tourists was noticeable. We mostly had Georgian guests. As for the tourists, they mainly came actively from the following countries: Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, and France, as well as from Israel, says Tekla Cincharaoglu. Speaking about the challenges, the founder of the hotel notes that some problems are solved, including electricity supply, and they are ready to welcome tourists. Luca Polare opened 3 additional branches in Baku last week and currently has 5 branches in Azerbaijan. As the company told BMDG, the company invested over $900,000 for the opening additional branches. It should be noted that the brand went beyond the borders of Georgia in summer 2023 and opened the first branch in Baku in August. At the beginning of this year, a branch with a different concept was added, and last week 3 new branches were opened. We continue to develop in Baku. Last week we opened several branches of different formats, including one is newly opened shopping mall, another one on the Central Street, and the third one in the Sea Breeze Beach Resort of Baku. We are not stopping development in Baku, and at the same time we are starting to work on a new country, and soon we will announce specific plans, company director Tinaktin Gobejishvili said. The branches and products in Azerbaijan are fully managed by Georgian management, although the service, production and logistics departments have been staffed with the local personnel, and the number of employees is increasing with each new facility. Luca Polare is an ice cream chain that offers its customers about 100 types of ice cream and exclusive coffee. The brand has been operating for 15 years and currently has 16 branches in Tbilisi, 5 in Batumi, 1 in Kobuleti, Kutaisi, Rustavi, and 5 branches in Baku. Csaba Abaishvili, the founder of Chaleli, declares that the company doesn't focus on the Russian market in terms of wine exports, noting that they don't want to produce wine of such a standard that should be exported to Russia. As the representative of the small company mentioned to BMDG, the activity started 2 years ago and sells wine in London, Helsinki, and Berlin, in addition to Georgia. According to him, the Russian market is not interesting for them. We established our winery 2 years ago. We are a small family winery from Kartli region. Our main direction is Kartli wine varieties. We have a great interest in mixing foreign and Kartli varieties, so we don't avoid experiments. We want to enter the EU market, said Csaba Abaishvili. The young winemaker wants to expand his business, but for him, as for the representatives of other small and medium-sized companies, the main challenge is access to finance. There is a problem of finances and loans. We have the will to expand the business, and the problem is that it's difficult to do to the expensive loans, Abaishvili said. Mariam Asatiani, the founder of Remax Capital, declares that the Georgia had a sustainable real estate market between January and May, but uncertainty arose among both customers and investors due to the ongoing political processes. As Mariam Asatiani noted, interest from foreign investors in real estate has decreased, but international companies that hire offices in the country still remain. Now we are in a turbulent zone. It's a difficult time. Before that, we were going up. It was an extraordinary year. From January, the market was very active. The effect of migrants was completely over, but both price and demand had a growing trend. All of a sudden, we faced this problem, which was called the Russian law. Both the population and our investors found themselves in uncertainty. Of course, foreign investors decide to postpone their plans at such time, and they can also make investments in different countries. As for the international companies that operate here, they still stay in the country. As for the residential real estate, the local consumers have a different motivation. They think the price will drop, but I think the price trend will not change, as it requires long-term stagnation. Now the sector is developing so healthy that I don't think it will happen in a case. Sales might reduce, but it will not affect the price, Mariam Asatiani said. And before we say goodbye for today, let us sum up 4 years of TBC on the Uzbek market. Nika Kurdiani and Oliver Hughes will tell us more about the bank's results, plans, new projects and products.
So, Oliver, Nika, thank you so much for this opportunity and for this very short notice coming from myself. Thank you so much. Nika, let me begin with the final figures. I mean, the official one, what we have due to the 2024 quarter one. Let me be more accurate with the figures. I mean, announced. Loans increased by 127%, deposits by almost 76%. TBC Uzbekistan generated over 18.5 million Georgian lari in profits, and which is about 46% growth year to year. So tell me, what do you attribute this increase to?
So basically, firstly, I attribute it to the very good execution.
Okay.
And the execution and the team that we have. Basically, we have fantastic team assembled in Uzbekistan, which is basically, we say internally, 17 different ethnicities. So we have people from all around the world, not only from Georgia and Uzbekistan. Great experiences, great capabilities. One. Second, the country has a massive potential. And third, I would say the strategy that we are running. We are very consistent in terms of what we are doing. We are very strict in terms of sequencing our steps. Basically, we know exactly what comes after what. So all these three items together give us the chance of performing in the way you were describing just now.
Tell me about the products. I mean, the list you're offering right now to the local market, I mean, Uzbekistan. Just tell the list and also your plans in this regard till the end of 2024 or already, I mean, like in a pipeline to be launching for the next year.
So firstly, in Uzbekistan, we are now operating commercially for 4 years, 4 full years. In these 4 years, we managed to have 3 companies in Uzbekistan. One is TBC UZ, the digital bank. The second one is PayMe, one of the biggest payment apps in the country. And the third one is PayMe Nasia, one of the biggest installment lending businesses, point-of-sale installment lending business in the country. So all these companies, of course, have their products. But in terms of total product portfolio, we are very big in P2P transfers. We are one of the biggest in consumer lending. The market share, the final figures reached almost 16% in consumer finance. We have deposit products, of course. Our loan book is almost fully financed by local retail SUM deposits. We have, of course, card products. So we are now launching a credit card. We are tapping into MSME market very soon in September. We'll be launching a fantastic current account product very soon, also in September. So the pipeline is very rich, but the current products are also quite rich as well. We are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, utility payments provider in the country. So customers pay utilities and different services through our apps. So basically, we are launching BNPL, like real BNPL, through PayMe very soon. So all this brings us to a very big product pipeline and also a very good platform of current products, which are giving the results you were mentioning.
Correct. And I hope, not hope, I will be witnessing this personally while traveling to Uzbekistan definitely this year, and just to meet you there as well. Oliver, thank you again for this opportunity, and please share with us your role and plans in TBC again, and it's a pleasure hosting you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Please.
So basically, I'm head of international business, but one of the decisions that we all took when I joined TBC back in September last year, that was my formal start in the company. Before that, I was an advisor for around 6 months. One of the first decisions was that we triple down in Uzbekistan. Yeah? So I'm head of international, but international is Uzbekistan for the time being. So at some point we will look at market number 3, but at the moment it's all about Uzbekistan. So 110% of Nika's time, 110% of my time is going on execution in Uzbekistan and building hopefully a very big and beautiful business. The opportunity is enormous, the potential's incredible, and as Nika was saying, the team that we have, the technology stack, The initial start, the fact that we've already reached profitability and we're scaling up on all sorts of different fronts, as you just heard, our product pipeline, I mean, the sky's the limit.
It is sort of, I don't know how to say, sharing the same success story or replicate what you've done with Tinkoff and its team. I mean, more precisely,
Sure. So there are not that many successful digital banks in the world. Yeah. So if you look around, there are really 4, I would say, standout names. So there's Kaspi in Kazakhstan, which is obviously a very important reference for us because it's in the region in Central Asia. Tinkoff in Russia, which, despite everything that's happened, is still doing very well and growing. It's up to about 40 million customers, I think, now, so it's huge. Nubank in Brazil, which is the real poster child of fintech and digital banking at the moment. They're doing an absolutely amazing job. I think they're up to 100 million customers, would you believe, and very profitable. And the 4th, wait for it, is TBC Uzbekistan. And I'll say that deliberately because there are very few consumer lending-led, fully licensed, deposit-funded, profitable and scaling digital banks in the world. So they're basically the 4 that come to mind. It's just people don't know about TBC Uzbekistan yet. So to answer to your question, there's no point in copying things. Yeah? You can be inspired by things. You can ideologically borrow from things. Maybe draw on the philosophy and even some of the know-how of different stories. But we're in Uzbekistan. We're TBC. We've got a very different bunch of people, a different idea, a different mission. We're very mission-driven, ideas-driven, and what we will build will not replicate anything else, Tinkoff or otherwise. So this will be a very different story in a very different market for very different people. But obviously, from a kind of eagle's eye view, there will be some similarities with other successful digital banks.
I'm always trying to share Nika Kurdiani's enthusiasm and optimism in this regards, while he was so much, I don't know, he was sharing with all of us with his first attempt moving to the Uzbekistan market. And could you guys share with our viewers and followers some insights from the Uzbekistan market, Nika, and also lessons learned, positive, negative. We are in a process. We cannot replicate Tinkoff or other banks' success or downfall, whatever it is. But please, just share some insights.
Yeah, so maybe I will start from a bit of Georgian perspective and move to Uzbekistan. So firstly, why did we move to Uzbekistan, and why generally we decided to expand to other country? Because our country is developing very quickly. It offers very good growth rates, but it has a natural limitation of 3.5 million people. So naturally, Uzbekistan now counts 37 million people. When we entered Uzbekistan was around 32 million, so it is growing. Last year, the statistics told us that basically there were newborn kids, approximately 1 million. So the country has a fantastic demographics and population pyramid. The average age stands around 29 years, and this is getting younger every year because the birth rate is so high. So basically, when you think out of a smaller country and you are already having significant market shares, and your market cap overall, we are listed in London, right? So is reaching certain levels, you have to think how to increase it further. So this was our bet. So we are sure that delivering in Uzbekistan, and if we execute well, and we will execute well, basically will offer a boosting effect for TBC in Georgia and overall for TBC Group everywhere. And that was the ideology or the narrative why we moved there. Well, again, Uzbekistan population is one. Secondly, I mean, the country is growing fantastically. It grew on average 5% last several years, and it is forecasted to grow another 5% next several years. So all this give you a fantastic possibility to penetrate. Digital figures are amazing as well. Smartphone penetration is massively high. Internet penetration is very good. Payments penetration is very good. There are 46 million cards on the population of 37 million in circulation. So this gives you a very good infrastructure to really go in, offer something innovative, and then build one of the showcase banks globally, This will be my answer, I don't know.
Yeah, so if I could just maybe develop that. So that's the context, that's Uzbekistan. Why TBC selected Uzbekistan as the market to go international. The first market, And you know, it's all the reasons that Nika's just said and many more I can only echo. So Uzbekistan is a fantastic, open place to do business, very supportive. But then there's the TBC platform, which is no less important. So, you know, there could be a huge market opportunity, but if you don't have the right prerequisites to capture that opportunity, then you won't be able to have a successful business and a successful scale-up. And so I briefly touched on this, but it's worth repeating that the team, so just the Georgian approach, very progressive, commercial, tech-driven, yeah, which is extremely important. So that's the kind of like backdrop against which we're operating, and one that I feel very welcome in and very comfortable in as an environment. It's a great commercial environment. So TBC took the decision to build a separate tech stack. So it's a separate platform for Uzbekistan because it's a different business, which is super important. And it's one of the mistakes that many incumbent banks have made over the years, to try and build something inside as opposed to do it completely separate. And the organization is different, the organizational structure for TBC Uzbekistan is different. There's a different type of person being hired into that organization. It's not replicant of what's happening in Georgia, which is very important because it's a different business model. It's a different business. So basically there's freedom to create, to move quickly, fail quickly, learn quickly, scale with a license, with the ability to fund ourselves through retail deposits in Uzbekistan, and choose the products that we need to develop to enter the market in a deep way in Uzbekistan and really change the lives of Uzbeks in terms of financial services. So it ticks all the boxes. It's just a great start.
We face some turbulent period, and we know from the very beginning that 2024 in general will not be either year, another turbulent year for the whole world, while 80% of the world GDP, we have elections, re-elections, some political changes, and we knew it from the very beginning. At the same time, all this reflects on the markets, Nika, and we cannot be exemption in this regards. We are part of the world, and we are facing all the challenges what we have around. How do you describe the current situation, and what's your thought in this regards?
You know, the key to success, in my opinion, and I do believe in this, is a long-term planning, and you should never run short-term games. We are not sprinters, we are marathon runners. So basically, we have a vision, we go towards that vision, we are building stories that last many, many years. TBC just turned over 30 years old, right? So basically we are building Georgian history. I mean, this is Georgian success. Now we are building another success already in Uzbekistan, and we have vision which is for many years. And these turbulences, I mean, they happen every now and then. So the stocks go up, stocks come down, you know, and they grow again. Now, if you look at the big names, like, I don't know, I don't want to mention, but lots of big names in the world, they all had ups and downs, and this is not attributed to the companies, this is attributed to the general geopolitics, you know, sometimes economic events, many things happening in the world. So that's why, you know, I feel very calm, because I am totally sure that we are executing very well. We have fantastic people in our team, and this all is growing, you know, so basically the fundamentals are right. Now, what is happening around us, we have no impact on this, so basically this will come and go, but what we have to do is we have to execute, you know, and this is the name of the game.
Yeah, maybe just to add a little bit of perspective on that. So maybe two kind of points. First is that you shouldn't look at short-term share price, because that's driven by all sorts of external factors which you know, come and go, and the markets are very fickle, especially when, as you say, there's lots of stuff happening in electoral cycles and whatever else. You look at the fundamental business numbers. Is the company fulfilling the guidance that it's given to the public investors, to the market? Is the company performing in a way that is fundamentally healthy, yeah, in terms of long-term value creation? So you look through the share price. The share price is for the investors. It's a bit of an irrelevance when you're building, you know, big business over a long period of time like we are. And fundamental investors look that way as opposed to speculative investors. That's very important. So that's the first point. The second point is from my personal history. Yeah? So I was with Tinkoff for 16 years from the very beginning, built it from nothing, I mean literally nothing, into something. And we took it public in 2013. And everything that could happen happened during that period. We went through 3 very severe crises. And the share price, went from 3 billion when we listed in London down to less than $300 million a couple of years later, and then up to $25 billion, and then fell a little bit. I think it's currently trading around about 8 billion. Shares go up and down. It's mainly externally driven rather than internally driven, and that's not how you run the business. So I'm very kind of sanguine about it.
Okay, the last question, but not the least, tell me about your plans of further expansion while covering international directions. TBC plans to more concentrate on the existing market of Uzbekistan, or you guys are still thinking about further expansion, and maybe in the horizon you still have some identifiers in this regards? Oliver, please.
Sure, yeah. So this is a story made in Georgia, now being made in Uzbekistan, and as I said earlier, this is something that we're tripling down, quadrupling down in Uzbekistan. Yeah? So there's a big opportunity to capture. We really want to make a positive impact on the Uzbek consumer and Uzbekistan in general. And as I say, Uzbekistan is being very welcoming and supportive in that, so it's great. Symbiotic relationship. We have something to bring, but in order to do this, it requires time, it requires execution, it requires focus. We don't want to get detracted or distracted by other stuff. Once we know that we're really on the right track in Uzbekistan, then it's time to think about market number 3. So there will be market number 3, we just don't know where. And I reckon we'll start to, have maybe some boots on the ground the next 2 or 3 years. But, we're not in a rush. We want to get Uzbekistan right.
I would just add several points. TBC has the mission of making people's life easier. And this mission is very strongly communicated inside the company, because everybody has to think through this lens. But there is a second aspect to it, which is making a strong Georgian case globally. And I think we are on this mission as well, and this is what makes all TBC employees within the whole group very proud, because we are building something, from scratch. We built something from very scratch in Georgia in 1992, right? We got the license, and the capital requirement was $500, if I remember correctly. So, and now we are running the Uzbekistan story, and this all creates the new TBC. A global TBC, So I personally have this big ambition, basically, to create one Uzbekistan. Maybe we go next country in 2-3 years, and then another country, and so on and so on. So this is something very big, very strong. We are one of those companies who is developing the modern economic history of this country, and this makes us very, very proud, and this drives us, to be honest.
Can I just add something else to that? Because we're talking about Uzbekistan, but during this conversation, but this is very much about Georgia as well. So I just don't want to lose the point that TBC Georgia is growing very profitably. It's an extremely successful player, and there are really not many banks in the world that make a 26% ROE, and TBC overachieved that number last year. I mean, it's quite amazing. So, we're talking about Uzbekistan because that's a high growth market with a very different tech model. But Georgia is doing amazingly as well, so for TBC.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks for
continue our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's all for today. We will meet next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Before that, keep following us on BM.G for more updates, news, and analysis in business and economics in Georgia, in the region, and beyond.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.